I put myself through the equivalent of 10 years at Harvard University in terms of what I know about real estate and people.
Welcome back to the show. My name is Remington Ramsey, and from the DC market, today we have Daniel Heider joining us on the show. Daniel, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Do people call you DH in the DC?
Sometimes, but
I wanted to be the first.
Good. I'm happy.
Yeah.
I'm happy that you're abbreviating.
Daniel, I'm really pumped to share your story because we share similar thoughts on kind of the state of where the peer pressure of kids going into school and having one direction with their life if they're going to be successful is it's been pushed on our society for years now. And without getting too into the trenches of like the current college setup, you were someone who started feeling in school like there was a different path for you, and you got into real estate much younger than most people do at the age of 24, and in 2 years were doing the volume that your mentor in real estate was doing. So definitely found immediate success, and this last year being your best year ever, doing over 207 million. So I like to start there because sometimes people will listen to this and not know who they're listening to, but that is monster success at such a young age. So congrats on that. And tell me those thoughts. Let's go back to that kid in school and kind of what you were toiling with.
Yeah, I mean, I think the school system in America, trains you to be prepared for the test, and it's all about college and what college you get into. And there's so much sort of academic pressure in that, and for, I guess kids who have a natural propensity to, be book smart, as they say, and study hard and apply themselves in that way, school is great. I'm not here to knock school, but what I will say is that, there's a lot of different ways to be educated. And luckily for me, I didn't end up going to college, and for me, instead, I decided to kind of face the real world head on and gave myself a education in real estate. Growing up in this area, in the DC capital area, it's a very competitive environment. Most of my friends at the college age were in law school and med school, and they were paging on the Hill, and their parents were hooking them up with great business folks. And when you're somebody who just absolutely dreads being in school and just doesn't perform well in that environment, you can look around and feel like there's something wrong with you. And what I learned is that there was nothing wrong with me, and as a matter of fact, I was able to really excel in the areas of my life where I was really strong. I like to think I'm a pretty asymmetrical person, right?
Yeah.
On one end, I'm like horrible at so many things, and then on another, I'm really good. So luckily for me, I figured out that really good pretty early.
Well, what's fascinating about DC is it's obviously known for, the government and everything that happens on that side of the business world, but it's also known as being like a very educated area. So for you to take this stance, all the meanwhile, you seem very educated. I don't think you slowed down at all, but I imagine it was 24. So while if you didn't go to school and you were, I believe, a server at the time, did you have a lot of doubt at that time that you were doing the right thing by not going to school?
I felt bad about it every single day. My family was just crushed that I chose not to go to college.
Really?
And I think that, there was a period of time in my life where, again, as I said, where I was watching all of those, sort of traditional meets and bounds of success as a young person in by way of my friends going and, interning at certain places, or, having their career focus in towards the legal side of things, or, to be a dentist or a doctor. And comparatively, you can feel bad when you're comparing your life, to others around you, you can feel pretty bad. But I don't know. I ended up, I've always worked really hard, right? I mean, at those times where I was working in a restaurant, there was a point in my life where I was waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning and working a breakfast shift at a hotel, changing my uniform, walking 2 blocks down the street on K Street to be a lunch server at a Greek restaurant that was like the power restaurant on K Street. And then worked later in the evening after that as a nightclub promoter. I was a kind of precocious, interested, entrepreneurial, kind of person. But
did you have? Can I pause you for a second? Did you have like what was your direction there? Did you feel? I mean, obviously you're making money if you're working 3 jobs and they're all in the service. You're making money doing that. But what was your direction at that time? Did you feel like you were going to get further along in one of those careers, or did you have some sort of vision outside of that?
I had a vision outside of that. In your early 20s, you're trying to just figure out the lay of the land. Like who you are is a big question, right? Like what you're supposed to do is something that's that can come much later in life. I think I had the blessing of interacting with a lot of people in that sort of hospitality capacity that I was getting feedback from a lot of people that, hey, you're really, really good at communicating. You're really good at assuring folks that what they're ordering is going to be spectacular, or romancing a certain special, or help managers sell a certain bottle of wine that they needed to get off of their hands, that was a certain vintage, right? Or the chef eliminate some of the overbuy for a specific cut of fish that he was trying to eliminate. Those type of experiences relate to what I do right now, and so with that feedback that I got, I started to think that real estate could be the place where I could be very successful, and as insecure as I was about having that piece of paper that says I'm trainable in form of a diploma and going to school and, having that under my belt, the people who I advise now are some of the smartest people in the world. These are the policymakers. These are the politicos. These are the, media tycoons. These are, global CEOs, tech firm CEOs. So I found my importance in the education that I was able to give myself from that young age to where I am right now. And now those people seek my advice. So it's really nice how that worked out. And I realized that not everybody, that doesn't shake out that way. There were a lot of factors at play that got me here. Number one, was born in this amazing country. I was born in an incredible, city and had access to all of these people. And when you're a server in a restaurant, when you're serving, Henry Kissinger lunch, and, senators and the Speaker of the House and, the big lobbyists on K Street, you get to learn a little bit about,
I bet,
the landscape and what's important to people. And, there were lobbyists that would come in and say like, hey, this guy that's about to sit down here, like, I need you to act like you know me. And, say that it's great to see me.
He comes in a lot.
Yeah. I mean, so I'm a very quick learner. I'm very perceptive, but, I was just never one to, I did fine in school, but I wasn't like this, phenom, magna cum laude.
You paid attention. So, 2-part question for you based on what we're talking about with the cool people that come in. Who are some of the coolest people that you served at the restaurants? Because were they not? I mean, some of the restaurants you served at, they were pretty nice, I'm assuming.
Yeah, all of them were nice. And my instincts, kind of put me in a nicer, my instincts
fine dining
told me to, I mean, I've always loved nice things. I've always liked, great service and the feeling that you get when you walk into a beautiful restaurant and somebody polished greets you and knows absolutely everything that they're talking about. It's that level of service and hospitality that I've just been naturally drawn to. I like fine presentation. And so suited me well. And I was able to be very successful by the, meets and bounds of a server at a really young age. I mean, there were nights where I was making thousands of dollars. walking out, of a restaurant. I mean, where those friends that I was so envious of, were the coffee boys and girls on the hill, and not to say there's anything wrong with that, but hey, in my mind, I was making money. I was, making myself useful. I was learning,
Right.
learning how to combat objections and how to delight people and how to, problem solve and how to deal with, managers who were atrocious and, back servers who, weren't paying attention to my section. And so it was a different type of education at that point in my life.
Yeah. So back to the question, who are some of the cool people that you served? And then the second part of the question is who are some of the cool people that you have sold homes to?
God, the long list. God, people that I served. I mean, it's been a while since I've been a server, so I'll have to think. I mean, countless.
Any scenarios stand out? Like you mentioned, someone saying, "Hey, act like I'm a regular." That's pretty funny.
Yeah, I mean, that was a K Street lobbyist who wanted to impress a member of Congress that he was wining and dining at a restaurant.
Yeah.
But like I just said, Henry Kissinger, Nancy Pelosi, John Boehner, John Stamos.
John Stamos, that's a name that's thrown in there.
Buzz Aldrin. I mean, just God.
Wow.
Lady Gaga. I mean, everyone. I mean, Washington is a place where influential people come to influence Congress, right? So when you're working at the IT Hotel, not only are you getting the institutional, Washingtonians, the presidents and the senators and the congressmen and the influential business people, but you're also getting the celebrities who are, testifying on the Hill. I mean, I literally count how many people that I've interfaced with at that level as a server. But in my professional career as a real estate agent,
are you selling luxury real estate now because you focus on luxury fine dining? Is luxury real estate a big thing of yours?
I don't think that luxury. Yeah, I mean, no, luxury real estate is the bread and butter of our business. So yes, yeah.
Being in the Capitol, is RPAC something that you're really involved in? Is it something that you're passionate about? Like, do you actually use your influence in the city with some of the connections you have pertaining to real estate?
I try to use real estate to advance as many people that need help as possible. I'm always open to chatting with somebody who, whether they're in a real estate program at a local community college here, or they're writing a paper. I get a lot of, we're the most followed brand on social media in the world. We have more social media followers than Ryan Serhant. So I have, millions of followers online. And so we get a lot of people who reach out to us on a consistent basis looking for advice. So I try to give them that advice as much as possible. As our market share continues to grow, it becomes more and more difficult to do that as much as I like to do. But I mean, I'm very invested in this community and serve on the board of the National Symphony Orchestra. And I like to be, hopefully
That's cool.
Impactful. Yeah.
Yeah. With the class action lawsuit going on in Missouri and some of these other conversations that people are having specifically around teams, it's interesting what's happening around teams. Do you find that it's possible that some of these mega teams that are dominating certain markets might expand and make connections or partnerships with other big cities deeper than what they're doing right now with referrals?
Sure. I mean, anything's possible. I mean, we've all seen the examples of, I mean, some of the $1 million listing guys whose teams have expanded all over the country. They're backed by their firm. Douglas Elliman is one of those firms that really, helps these big teams kind of expand all over the country. Douglas Elliman just entered our market. Look, it's about market share, and more so, it's about trust. And it's about hiring the right people. A big sort of anchor to this conversation is about education. And Washington is the most educated city, major metropolitan city in the United States per capita. This is the area where folks have the highest levels of high education. So, in order to be an effective real estate agent at the very highest realms, of our price points, which we operate in, you have to be presenting academic data in a way that's palpable to a lot of the folks that we serve. So I would just say to those teams looking to expand, I can't speak for other metropolitan areas, but for those companies and for those teams that are thinking about expanding into Washington and want to grab some of the luxury clientele, I'd say you got to really do your homework. You got to be really strategic, because the agents that you pull on board are make or break. I mean, we saw, a lot of, there were a lot of examples of like Compass, who came into our market, who grabbed a small boutique firm. I think that they would have been highly effective if they had grabbed a different subset of agents from the onset, because they don't really have a luxury presence here in Washington. They have a very small luxury presence as compared to my firm and then another competitor firm of ours. So I think you just have to be really smart and make decisions based on the people that you're bringing on to anchor the business. So it could happen.
Well, specifically talking about the people that you're bringing on, what's interesting to bring this full circle is, do you feel like you're an anomaly, having not been educated by, higher education system, when you're bringing on new realtors and making sure they can handle this city's level of knowledge around the industry? Do you look for someone who's educated, or do you look for someone who's not educated? Like, how do you figure out if they're up to par?
Well, as I said before, education is very subjective. My great aunt, who was a really powerful force in my life, she was one of the most successful sports agents in the Washington area. She represented a lot of Redskins, famously Dave Butts and Mark Mosley, when the Redskins were winning Super Bowls back in the day. She was a Catholic nun, and she left the convent to start this business. And so she was not only a very successful female sports agent in the 80s and late 70s, but she was the first. And so I see a lot of parallels between myself and my Aunt Carolyn. And she was all about education. She spent a large part of her life teaching in the community college. We were always focused on education. But she said to me when I made the decision to, drop out of school. I did a little bit of school. So when I made the decision that I didn't want to do it anymore, she said to me, I was getting out of her car. She said, "Darling," she said, "you know what? I'm not worried about you. The community will educate you." And I didn't really know what that meant at the time, but I think education, specifically to what I have received, I put myself through the equivalent of 10 years at Harvard University in terms of what I know about real estate and people and scenarios. I've sold over 500 houses here. I've dealt with the most VIP folks in Washington. I've been at other firms. I've started my own business. I've hired and fired and have gone through a really healthy cycle at this juncture of my career, enough to say that what I find to be more attractive is a level of work ethic and understanding, and most importantly, self-awareness. That is the type of education. I could care less if you went to WVU and partied your way through 4 years of college and did keg stands all night long. That doesn't make you more educated than me, right? So I think it's subjective. At the same time, I'm not necessarily drinking my own Kool-Aid. There are a million other folks out there who are much smarter than me. Everybody on my team happens to be college educated. Everybody. Yeah. But that doesn't mean that I'm not. I'm not open to having folks on our team who aren't. As a matter of fact, I parted ways with a young associate who started off working for me, who went to Georgetown, and when he was starting, sort of as a green agent, and I was teaching him the ropes and sharing with him business that other people would have died to have. You give somebody an opportunity to make tens of thousands of dollars with minimal interaction. I remember him saying to me, "Well, Daniel, the average student that graduates Georgetown makes at least $160,000 a year coming out of college." And I fired him immediately after that conversation because he wasn't really useful to me. So, again, education is subjective. I'm not looking for a pedigree. I'm looking for an empathic, smart, hardworking person who knows how to take care of people, apply a level of hospitality, and my ideology of real estate. I have a very small team. We were voted the top producing team by the Wall Street Journal and Real Trends for 2 years in a row in DC, Maryland, and Virginia these past 2 years. And for 4 years, we've led our entire company in sales in DC, Maryland, and Virginia. And that none of that was because people were college educated or not.
Well, educated though, do you feel like in DC you have to be educated on what's going on politically in order to make it in real estate sales? And what I mean by that is, like, it's possible to sell in Indiana, live completely under a rock, know a ton about real estate, be somewhat connected in the community, but not know anything that's going on in the world. And that's totally a lot of places around the world. I wonder if that's the way it is in DC. I wonder if, like, the top realtors all have to have some sort of political acumen.
Well, just like anything, right? If you're going to be successful at a certain level, in a certain, career, you want to be able to relate to your clients, right?
Right. So
I find
clients,
that, yeah, I find that, a lot of the relationships that I built with, some of these families are because they relate to me, and we do share, a lot of similar interests. I watch all of the presidential debates. My clients are the people that you see on TV that are reading you the news. The folks that are engaged at that level. My clients are secretaries of major branches of the government, and so yes, I like to read about my clients. I like to know what they're facing. I like to try and be apprised of issues that may be on their mind when I'm speaking to them. So yeah, I mean, it's Washington. So if you're not interested in the political arena, it can be, I guess, a difficult place to connect with a certain subset of clients. But you should also know that Washington is a city that is, for the most part, vastly insulated by the ancillary companies that support the federal government. So the biggest consulting firms, the biggest lobbying firms, med tech is here. There's so much that is in Washington that's beyond the scope of politics, politically adjacent, but not necessarily just politically focused.
Well, last question about this, and then we're going to transition into, you mentioned social media, so I'm very curious as to how that plays into your business. But you're pretty young. You're 36 years old. I would have to think that most the people that are serving in the political game are much older. So to crack into that networking, how were you able to do that with an older demographic, let alone like how connected they were? I would imagine most of them have tons of connections. So even if I'm not in DC, I could probably learn a lot from how you were able to crack that code.
Totally. And it's very simple the way that I see it. My entire business is about my clients, full stop. My clients hire me because I work hard and I'm smart, and I go above and beyond to get the deal done. Every listing that we have is an expression of real trust. Right now, we're sitting on $414 million in active inventory for just my team of 4 advisors. That is a humongous amount of market share. And so what ends up happening most of the time is that business begets business, where you sell the most nuanced, most expensive house in a certain neighborhood. Well, all of a sudden, when that sells and you set a record and you break a sales record, the neighbors are calling you. They want that service too. I like to look at my business, and I always have, even when I wasn't working at the very, very, very highest realms of the Washington capital region market, as every person who came to me seeking my advice, I had the opportunity to help them buy or sell their property. I was not just looking at them as a singular transaction. I had always worked as though I wanted to have 10 or 15, more opportunities from that person. So at every point that, I was succeeding for them or presenting a beautifully, articulate presentation on their home value, or, bringing, buyers through their house and leaving them, a special gift, or having their house professionally cleaned before they moved in, or catering their move, or connecting them with somebody to help them get a job, or introducing them to their future husband or future wife, or getting them the restaurant reservation at the hardest restaurant to get into, or whatever it is that I could do. See, the thing is that I am successful because real estate is like the byproduct of what I really do. Right? We are helping people who are in a major transition in their lives live their best lives in this area to our best extent, right? Whether that's giving them really good advice and helping them, enter the market at a certain price point, or it's, like I said, introducing them to, a preschool that, their kids can go to, and a group of parents. We try to surround our clients and the relationships that we have with service that far extends beyond just closing a deal and then piecing out.
I mean, you're really tapping into what you learned in this service industry and amplifying that to, in your own words, you wanted to be taken seriously. And now you're in an industry that you can apply what you learned and be taken serious. I think we're taking you serious now, Daniel. So, let's talk about social media with the few minutes that we have left. You mentioned having more followers than the $1 million guy, right? So what mediums do you focus on, and how does that translate to either the optics of your business or truly converting to business?
Yeah. So since 2019, we've closed $75 million in business from our Instagram and TikTok channels alone. We track everything in our office. And, we're the dominant player on TikTok. So if you go to TikTok and you just simply type in the words real estate, we'll be the top account, verified account. We have 3.6 million followers, almost 3.7. And so controlling Washington's most followed real estate channels here locally, and always advertising on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, and did I say Facebook? Facebook.
No, not Facebook.
Facebook. It I think showcases our understanding of where the attention is. I don't know about you, but I can't even watch TV at my house without being interrupted by my cell phone. I'm constantly scrolling. I'm checking my phone. I'm looking at my emails. I'm reading my DMs. I'm constantly on my phone, and we know that. We also know that I used to say some time ago that the cell phone is how like 98% of people get their real estate information. Well, I can confidently say that 100% of people are finding their homes online today, and that the smartphone to our generation is what the TV was to our parents and the radio was to our grandparents. So imagine if I were to come into your living room and to say to you, I can guarantee that taking a creative, cinematic, like really fabulous, creative video segment of this house can garner you at minimum, guaranteed at minimum 40,000 views, right? Guaranteed. Think about how many mailers you'd have to send to get that many eyeballs on a property.
Well, so is that the content of your TikTok channel? Because I think some people hear that and they're like, okay, so I'm just posting my listings, Matterport on TikTok and Instagram over and over again. But I imagine if we go to your accounts, it's more than just that.
We're always looking to reiterate, and we're always looking to figure out what is relevant and what folks want to hear. For the past 3 years, more or less, we've been very dominant on just showcasing our own listings. So if you go to my channels, all you will see are our own listings. It is intellectually honest. We're not posting other people's luxury listings. Everything that you see on our page is ours. And
so that's aesthetically pleasing. That's a little bit leg up on the competition, is like literally the content that you are provided by your luxury listings. Do you also do anything about is it ever you talking about the market and educating the buyer?
Yeah. So what we've learned in making, our clients' homes sort of the brand, if you will, the brand of refined marketing, is that a lot of people want to know who's the person behind the brand. How did this happen? Who are the people that are actually making this happen? How does somebody get a $52 million listing and a $30 million listing and a $32 million listing and a $15 million listing and a $20 million? How does that happen? And so we're getting ready to launch a new sort of batch of content that will hopefully open that door a little bit more, to me and my team, and it's different. We try to show people what they want, and one day, maybe the interest will be to something else, and hopefully we'll be the early adopter of that too. I think a lot of what people think is that TikTok is not an effective source to be successful, and I can tell you right now that is entirely misjudged and miscalculated. The amount of business that we do and phone calls.
Let me tell you the argument, and I want to hear your argument for us. I think the argument I've heard in the past is if you look at across the nation, the average home buyer is on Facebook primarily, Instagram secondarily, and then other means. And the average user on TikTok is not old enough or not desiring to purchase a home. That's been the argument. But I think as those kids are growing older, how long has TikTok been around? But now I think there's a lot more TikTok users that are even boomers, all the way up to boomers. So
think about it. Think about it this way. When Facebook started, Facebook was literally, the whole concept of Facebook was to connect college sororities and fraternities, right? And so, now your grandmother, your great grandmother is on Facebook.
Yeah.
The same thing was true for Instagram. It was irrelevant until it was the only thing that people were going to be on. Yeah. And I'd bet you, based on history, that the same thing is happening on TikTok. And I would also tell you that because again, we've quantified what has come from these channels. Okay. I can tell you right now, the amount of attention out there, especially in the capital region area, for those that know that when they see my name and they see Daniel Heider and they're like, wait a minute, Heider, real? Are you the guy from, do you own that company?
You're the TikTok guy? Yeah.
Like my dermatologist, who, when I was just at her getting my skin checked a couple of weeks ago, she said to me, "Hey, Daniel, do you still have that penthouse available in West End?" And I'm like, "Doctor, I never talked to you about what I do." And she said, "Well, my daughter is constantly showing me things on TikTok because we're looking for." Well, I can tell you right now, yesterday, when I received an inquiry on danielheider.com from that doctor whose name I won't mention, saying, "Please come list my house and I need to buy a house," that is direct capital coming from a medium that I would have otherwise, never benefited from. You miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. And the folks that, that I've seen, the folks that, are the first to criticize or maybe don't understand the platform, they just don't understand it, right? And I think we're really lucky that we were those early adopters. But I will tell you right now, it pays dividends. And you're right. Maybe the statistics right now show that the average home, multi-million-dollar home buyer exists on Facebook versus, Instagram. But we all know that the largest transfer of wealth is happening between the boomer generation and the millennials right now. And the millennials are the ones who are slowly adopting TikTok, right? And so,
right. They're watching it in their parents' basement, but they're watching it.
Yeah. And listen, it's not my only, I feel like I've been, in a lot of ways, because our TikTok is so strong and our social media is so strong that people only want to talk about social media with me. But the reality is that I didn't get multi-million-dollar listings from having a TikTok when there was no TikTok, right? Or Instagram. So, but I did get those listings by being innovative and investing, heavily into video in my market. The first person that was doing a video for every single listing that I got, and I was promoting it, and
Well, I imagine that was on YouTube, right? Because you would have been 24, which would have been 10 years ago. Was that
No,
was it
actually,
YouTube or
it
Facebook?
wasn't. It wasn't. It was on Instagram. It was, and I was
Instagram.
doing it. I was doing it myself. And if you go on, my personal Instagram, I used to be the brand. I used to not even have a Heider real estate team account, and
Right.
now that account, I think we have like 176,000 followers. So, it takes time to build things, but awareness is real, and the awareness is on this thing right here.
All right, I want you to speak to a very specific listener right now. This has been gold. I mean, there's been anyone listening to this can take away any amount of notes, but I want you to talk to the 25-year-old kid who's not even in real estate that just gets a hold of this somehow, and they are hearing the sky is falling news. They're hearing about the Fed and the interest rates and all this stuff. And I want you to tap into 24-year-old Daniel and encourage the 25-year-old to get started, maybe not in real estate, but to follow their dreams as an entrepreneur. What would you tell that kid?
I would tell them that at 24 years old, right before I turned 24, I was working in a restaurant that I just absolutely couldn't stand working in. I hated my job. I felt, I felt like the world had turned against me, including my family, who were all very disappointed that I didn't take the path that my cousins and my brother took. And in that moment, I had been doing a lot of sort of explorative self-help, listening to, at the time, CDs and books on tape, self-help things, various things. And if you're curious about what those are, I'd be happy to go into them at some later point. But one of the things that I listened to was how important it is to have a written goal, and you don't have to have this big thesis. And it doesn't have to be, double spaced and 250 words. I went to my car between shifts after being, chewed out by a manager who was harping on my shirt that wasn't perfectly starched, because I really couldn't afford to get my shirt starched, is the honest truth. And I went to my Toyota Prius that I could barely pay my $215 a month payment for. And I went to the little, register where the receipt comes out of the machine where you print off a check. And I got some extra paper and I got a pen and I went to my Toyota Prius and I wrote down on a little piece of paper that, by the time I was 25, I wanted to be taken seriously and I wanted to be informed and I wanted to have a sense of life, and I wanted to wear a blazer every day, and I wanted, to make over $100,000 a year, and it just started by writing it down, and when you don't have anything to lose, when you're 24, I'm speaking to you, right? You asked me to speak to that 24 or 25-year-old. When you don't have anything to lose, right? When you feel like the whole world is against you, when you feel that, you're diminished by the people around you or your family or whomever, that is the best opportunity you could ever have. Because the one thing that has helped me so much in my life is being underestimated. I've been underestimated by, executives at various companies that I've worked for. I've been underestimated by my family. I've been underestimated by certain, folks. And that's exactly what I needed to get through to have my own breakthrough. And so you have to be your biggest champion, and you have to write down your goals. You have to know where you're going, and you have to make the sacrifices in order to get it. When I told you that I worked 3 jobs, I'm not kidding. I worked 3 jobs and I was tired a lot of the time, but I was invigorated.
Yeah.
I was invigorated because it was the freedom that I gave myself that gave me, the understanding that the future would avail itself in great opportunity, because I was out there intentionally focused on creating it for myself. And so we all create our own realities by the thoughts that we think and the actions that we take. And so if you want what you say you want, you have to take the steps to do the things that it really takes. And so if you have to work for free for that, mega agent, for a year and eat ramen noodles for a year and move out of the, fancy, leasing, a leased apartment that you have with the, beer on tap and the pool on the roof, to live in a shitty apartment, to make ends due, to get into the right place, to actually get your footing and make something, then you do that.
Mm-hmm.
You do that, but you never, ever, ever compromise with your vision.
This has been great. That was Daniel Heider, the founder of the Heider Group, leading the way in the nation's capital. Thanks for being on the show.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
We'll see you next time on the Real Producers Podcast.